2 words. That's all it took. 2 words spoken out loud in open court by a woman who had spent her entire adult life believing that enough money made you untouchable. Worthless bureaucrat. She said it directly to me, and the courtroom went so quiet that I could hear the clock on the back wall ticking. In 38 years on this bench, I have been called many things. I have been challenged, argued with, negotiated with, and occasionally yelled at. I have had people walk out of my courtroom angry, and I have had people walk out in tears. But no one, not once, in nearly 4 decades, had ever called me worthless to my face, until that Tuesday morning in October. And what happened next, I want to tell you carefully, because this is not a story about anger. It is not a story about revenge. It is a story about what happens when a person finally meets a wall that money cannot move. Before I take you into that courtroom, I want to ask something of you. If you believe that the law should apply equally to everyone, to the powerful and the ordinary, to the wealthy and the struggling, please subscribe. We tell these stories because they matter, and they matter most when people like you are listening. Now let me take you back to that October morning. Her name was Victoria. She arrived the way some very wealthy people arrive, not just on time, but in a way that made her presence feel like an event. The courtroom stirred when she walked in, not because of who she was exactly, but because of how she moved, like someone who expected rooms to rearrange themselves around her. She wore a tailored suit. Her jewelry caught the light. Her heels clicked against the courtroom floor in a rhythm that sounded, somehow, like impatience. She sat down, crossed her legs, and looked around my courtroom the way a person looks at a hotel room they've already decided is below their standards. The charge was straightforward: driving 63 miles per hour through a school zone with a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit. Security camera footage showed her vehicle passing through a crosswalk with children present. A crossing guard had to pull 2 students back from the curb. According to the police report, when the officer explained the severity of the situation, Victoria had replied, "Those children should learn to stay out of the road when important people are driving." I had read that line twice before I came into the courtroom. Important people. I kept that phrase in the back of my mind as the hearing began. "Mrs. Victoria," I said, "you were charged with excessive speeding in a school zone. Children were present. How do you plead?" She removed her sunglasses slowly, deliberately, as if the question itself was slightly beneath her. "Your Honor," she said, "I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'm not entirely sure I should be here at all. I have been doing this for 38 years. I have never had a defendant tell me they shouldn't be at their own hearing." "Mrs. Victoria," I said, "you received a lawful citation. This hearing is mandatory. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?" She sighed, an actual, audible sigh, as though I had asked her something tedious. "Your Honor, my husband's company employs thousands of people across Rhode Island. Our foundation donated millions to local causes last year. I was on my way to receive a humanitarian award for helping disadvantaged children, I might add. Surely issuing a citation to someone who contributes as much as I do is somewhat counterproductive." The gallery stirred. She had just told me, and everyone else in that room, that her charitable contributions should exempt her from a law designed to protect children. "Your charitable work does not exempt you from traffic laws," I said. "Please answer the question, guilty or not guilty?" She tilted her head slightly. "What I'm suggesting is that we resolve this quickly, a small fine paid immediately, and then I can return to things that actually matter. Things that actually matter." She had just told a room full of people that their legal system was less important than her schedule. I asked my clerk to display the security camera footage on the courtroom monitor. The video was brief and clear. Her vehicle moving fast, very fast, through a crosswalk. Children visible on both sides of the street. The crossing guard reaching out and grabbing a child's arm. The room watched in silence. "Mrs. Victoria," I said when the video ended, "having now seen that footage, do you want to revise anything you've said?" She looked at the screen, then back at me. "No one was hurt, Your Honor. We are discussing hypothetical outcomes. The fact is, I maintained control of my vehicle throughout. I want to tell you what I was feeling in that moment. Not anger. Not yet. What I felt was something closer to sorrow, because I have sat across from thousands of people in this courtroom, people who made mistakes, people who were struggling, people who came in scared and left humbled, people who looked at me with honest eyes and said, 'I was wrong. I'm sorry. Tell me what I need to do.' And then there are the rare ones, the ones who walk in so wrapped in their own importance that they cannot see the person in front of them at all, cannot see the children on the sidewalk, cannot see the crossing guard reaching, cannot see the room full of human beings who have chosen, each in their own way, to live by a common set of rules. Victoria was not a cruel woman, I don't think. She was something perhaps more dangerous than cruel. She was completely, absolutely certain that she mattered more than the people around her, and that certainty had made her blind. "Mrs. Victoria," I said, "I have given you several opportunities to show some recognition of what that video shows. Instead, you've told me about your foundation, suggested your schedule is more important than this proceeding, and implied that your economic contributions exempt you from laws that exist to protect children." I paused. "Do you understand why this court finds your attitude concerning?" And that was the moment the crack appeared. Not into remorse, not into reflection, into rage. Her composure, which had been perfectly maintained until that moment, broke, not gradually, all at once. Her face flushed, her hands, which had been resting elegantly in her lap, tightened. "Your Honor," she said, and her voice had risen, not to yelling, but to that particular pitch that tells you control is leaving the building. "I have tried to be respectful here, but I don't think you understand how people like me actually operate. People like me. I contribute more to this community than most of the people in this room will in their entire lives. My tax payments probably fund this courthouse." She gestured around the room with one hand, the gesture of someone who believes they own what they're pointing at. "So when you delay me with petty procedures over a minor traffic incident, you are wasting the time of someone whose time actually—" She stopped. She took a breath, and in that single breath, something in her made a choice. The wrong one. "You need to understand something, Your Honor." Her voice had gone very level now, precise, deliberate, like she was making sure every word landed exactly where she intended it. "People like you are basically worthless bureaucrats." The room did not erupt. That's the thing I always remember. It did not erupt. It went silent in a way that felt almost physical, like the air had been pulled out. The clerk stopped typing. The bailiff took a half step forward. In the gallery, I saw a woman put her hand over her mouth. Victoria's own attorney had gone the color of chalk. She had called a sitting judge worthless, out loud, in open court, on the record, in front of witnesses. And she wasn't finished. "You sit behind that bench collecting a government salary while people like me create actual value. You have probably never signed the front of a paycheck, never been responsible for anyone except yourself, never built anything, created anything, contributed anything meaningful." Each sentence landed flat and certain, like she was reciting established facts. "I generate more economic activity in a single day than this entire courtroom represents in a year. So yes, when you delay me with your procedures and your paperwork and your process, you are wasting the time of someone whose time actually matters. Worthless. Matters. Petty." She had insulted me. She had insulted every person in that gallery. She had reduced 38 years of public service, of listening, of trying to be fair, of caring about the people who walked through that door, to a punchline. And she meant it. That was the thing that struck me most. She was not performing. She was not venting in a way that she'd regret in 20 minutes. She genuinely believed what she was saying. In her mind, she had simply stated facts. I stood up. I do not stand often during proceedings. When I do, the people who know this courtroom understand what it means. Victoria interpreted it as hesitation. It was not. "Mrs. Victoria," I said quietly, "did you just call this court worthless?" She met my eyes, her chin lifted slightly. "I called you a worthless bureaucrat, Your Honor, and I stand by that." A pause. "I see," I said. I walked around from behind my bench. I have done this my entire career, stepping down from the elevated position, closing the physical distance, speaking person to person instead of judge to defendant. I do it when I want someone to really hear me, not as a threat, as a human being talking to another human being. Victoria took a small half-step back, the first uncertain movement I had seen from her all morning. "Mrs. Victoria," I said, "let me tell you something about what happens in this room." I kept my voice low, steady. Every morning, people walk through that door carrying something heavy, a mistake they made, a bill they can't pay, a moment they wish they could take back. They stand where you are standing, and they tell me the truth about themselves. Some of them are ashamed. Some of them are scared. All of them are human beings doing their best to face what they've done. I looked at her directly. That is not small work. That is not worthless work. That is the most important work a society can do, deciding together how we are going to treat each other, what rules we will all agree to live by, what it means when those rules are broken. She said nothing. "You drove 63 miles per hour through a school zone where children were standing. A crossing guard had to grab a child's arm." I let that sit for a moment. "And your response in this courtroom today has been to tell me that your schedule is more important than those children's safety, that your economic contributions make you exempt from consequences. And now that I have disagreed with you, that I have had the audacity to require you to answer for what the video clearly shows, you have called me worthless." Another pause. "Mrs. Victoria, the only thing I want you to do right now is hear what I'm about to say." I returned to my bench. I opened a file that had been sitting there throughout the entire hearing. Victoria's eyes went to it, and something, for the first time, flickered across her face that was not confidence. "I have been a judge for 38 years, I said. "In that time, I have learned that when someone walks into this courtroom with the certainty that rules don't apply to them, it is usually worth understanding why they believe that, what has been allowed, what has been overlooked, what has been quietly excused over the years because of who they are." I looked at her over my reading glasses. "Your real estate company has 200 open code violation complaints filed by low-income tenants, heating failures, structural problems, complaints that have sat unanswered for months because the people filing them did not have the resources to force a response." Victoria's lips parted. "Your charitable foundation has been flagged for a pattern of administrative expenses that, according to filings, appear to significantly exceed the amounts actually distributed to the causes you claim to support." "Your Honor, I'm not finished." She closed her mouth. "Additionally, there is a documented pattern of speeding complaints tied to your vehicle across multiple school zones in this city. This was not a single lapse in judgment. It is a pattern." I set the file down. "I tell you these things not to punish you for them here. Those matters belong to other jurisdictions, and they will be handled there. I tell you because I want you to understand something. The system you called worthless this morning, it is the same system that has, until now, been the reason those complaints were still sitting in filing cabinets. The same system that, when it functions properly, holds everyone to the same standard." I paused. "Including you." The gallery was completely still. "For the offense of excessive speeding in a school zone with children present, I am imposing the maximum available fine, plus full court costs." Victoria said nothing. "For direct contempt of court, for calling this bench worthless in open court, and then repeating it when given the opportunity to reconsider an additional fine. Your license is suspended for 1 year, and you will complete 300 hours of community service. Specifically, with school safety programs, you will work alongside the crossing guards, the school staff, the parents, the people who show up every day to make sure children get across the street safely. You will learn their names, you will hear their stories, and you will do the work. Victoria stood very still. "This is Victoria," I said. "I want to be clear. This sentence is not about those 2 words you said to me. What you called me does not change who I am or what I do. I will be in this courtroom tomorrow morning and the morning after that, doing the same work I have always done. Your opinion of that work is your business." I looked at her steadily. "But you endangered children, and you stood in this room and treated that fact as an inconvenience. That is what this sentence is about. Not my feelings, theirs." She completed her community service, all 300 hours. I know this because the coordinator of the school safety program sent my office a brief report when she finished. It was factual, professional. Attendance, perfect. Attitude, changed significantly over time. The coordinator added 1 note at the bottom of the report, in handwriting rather than typed. She said, "By the end, the kids asked for her by name." I read that line a few times. About 8 months after the hearing, Victoria appeared before me for a brief compliance review. She had to show proof of completion, confirm the fines had been paid. She looked different, not in an obvious way. She was still well-dressed, still composed, but something in the way she held herself had shifted. The armor was thinner. "Your Honor," she said, "I want to say something if that's all right." "Go ahead." "I've been thinking about what I said in this room. Not just the 2 words, all of it. The way I talked about those children, the way I talked about the people in this courtroom." She stopped for a moment. "I convinced myself for a very long time that because I donated money and created jobs and attended the right events, I was contributing something, that my life had weight because of what I had accumulated." She looked at me directly. "Working with those kids and the people who show up for them every single day, for not very much pay, for no recognition at all, I understood something I had missed entirely. Those people have more weight in their lives than I have ever had in mine. Not because of what they've built, because of what they give." I let the room hold that for a moment. "Mrs. Victoria," I said, "that understanding, that right there, is worth more than anything else that's happened in this case." She nodded. Something in her eyes was quiet. "I'm told the children asked for you by name," I said. A small smile crossed her face. "Genuine, small, but genuine." "There's a girl named Amara," she said, 7 years old. "She made me a drawing of the crosswalk. She wrote my name on the crossing guard vest." She paused. "I have it on my refrigerator. People sometimes ask me what I am proudest of in 38 years on this bench. I never say the big cases. I never say the complicated rulings. I say the moments when someone came in one way and left another. Not changed by punishment, changed by being seen, being held to something, being required to stand in a different place and look at the world from a new angle. Victoria called me worthless. I think about that sometimes, not with bitterness, that passed quickly, but with something closer to understanding. When people call others worthless, they are usually trying to protect something in themselves, some story they have built about who matters and who doesn't, some arrangement of the world that puts them safely at the top. Calling someone else worthless is a way of saying, "I am not afraid of being seen as ordinary, because I am not ordinary. I am above this." The truth is, no one is above this. This courtroom, this work, is not about power. It is not about who has more. It is not about whose schedule matters most. It is about the agreement we all make, every day, simply by living alongside each other. The agreement that the children crossing the street in the morning matter. That the crossing guard who shows up in the rain matters. That the elderly man who just needs someone to listen to him matters. That the young mother who made one mistake and is trying to do right by her family matters. All of them, equally. That is what courts exist to protect. And that, I will tell you plainly, is not nothing. It is everything. If this story stayed with you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is feeling unseen. Someone who needs to be reminded that what they do every day, the quiet, unglamorous, necessary work of living with integrity, has value that no bank account can measure. Because it does. Order in the court.